Sat Sri Akal, Namaste, hello, and welcome to the show called The Truth Tribe. I'm your host, Ravi Tur, and today we will be discussing politics, public service, and life on the Vancouver Island with our very special guest, MLA Ravi Parmar from Langford, Wandi Fuka. Sir, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks so much, Ravi, for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you on the show. MLA Parmar's journey from a young individual in British Columbia to a pivotal role as an MLA for Langford, Wandi Fuka encapsulates commitment, drive, and a passion for public service. His various roles in the British Columbia government showcase his multifaceted skills, leadership, and deep dedication to the people. He started off his career with a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science and Public Administration from the University of Victoria, to now being the MLA for Langford, Wandi Fuka, taking over a stronghold Democratic seat in place of the outgoing Premier John Horgan. From there on, you have also worked on the Souk School District Board. You started off as the board member and then went on to be the youngest elected chair in British Columbia. You've worked as the Chief of Staff for the Office of Minister of Jobs, Economic Development and Innovation, and a Senior Ministerial Advisor to the same department. You've also worked as a Ministerial Advisor to the Minister of Forests, Lands, Natural Resources, and Rural Development. All that plus much more. You're a dedicated community worker, super excited to chat with you today and to learn from you. But to start us off, in your own words, who is MLA Ravi Parmar and what do you really do?
That's $1 million question. Thanks so much to you, Ravi, for creating the platform for South Asian individuals like myself to be able to come on and share our stories and share the challenges that we've gone through and also the successes that we've had. I think that's so incredibly important. And I know that I came across you on Instagram and I've been a big fan following many of your podcasts ever since you first reached out to me. I'm the son of immigrants. My parents immigrated here from Punjab in the early 90s. They came here, so many others, with not a lot, but a lot of ambition, a lot of tenacity, and a real work ethic. And that work ethic, I'd like to say, has been passed on to me. When my parents came here, I was the first of 3 children that they had. And being the firstborn of Punjabi was what I was taught at home. And so for them, English was a second language to them as it was to me. And so when I went to school, what I learned in the term of English and also the Canadian culture and identity and traditions was something I passed on to my parents, who at that point were just really focused on putting food on the table and a roof over top of our heads. And so I'm really thankful to be in Canada and the son of 2 incredibly hardworking individuals, and also my grandmother, who very much was the childcare team for my siblings and I. I grew up in Victoria, spent my early days here in school, and then my parents made the difficult decision when our family was growing. We were living in a relatively small townhouse unit, all sharing bedrooms. And when our family was growing and our parents were in a position to do so, we moved to Langford. I often joke that we spent about 2 years attending every single open house in Saanich and Victoria and Gordon Head. My parents, and in particular my grandmother, is a very picky person. My dad got tired of bringing my grandma to open houses because she would pick out little things that she didn't like about the house and just kill any thought of purchasing it. But one day he went out on his own with my sister and went out and purchased a house and didn't even tell my mom or grandmother. And at the time, people laughed at us at the thought of living in Langford. For those of your listeners that don't know where Langford is, it's a small suburb, about a 20-minute drive from Victoria, from the downtown core of Victoria. It is one of the fastest, if not the fastest growing city in British Columbia, and I think the 3rd fastest growing city in Canada. Its population is blooming. And when we first moved out here, people would laugh at us and say, "Why are you moving to Langford?" It's a bedroom community. Many people left the community each and every day to their jobs. So you'd be stuck in the commute. There wasn't much of a life out here besides people working in town and coming home to sleep. But it's changed. And when I first started attending school at Millstream Elementary School in Langford, I was one of the only people of color to be in my local school. And Ravi, if you were in Langford today, you would be so amazed to see the diversity of the community. We have a strong and growing Muslim population, a strong Sikh population, and that's just not there as well from India. That I've really been proud to get to know the community. I learned yesterday that we have a very strong and impressive Latino community, as well as a Tagalog Filipino community as well. And so it's been really important for me to get to know all the diverse people that make Langford their home. I was a student in school, just like anyone else. going to school every day. It wasn't until really elementary school, grade 5, that I really started getting an interest in politics. And I have to owe it all to my teacher, Miss Alton, back in grade 5, who had us do a project on the 2005 provincial election. I should add before then that my interest in politics started through my parents. Both my parents were healthcare workers. They worked in Victoria at the Royal Jubilee Hospital. My dad was a housekeeper and my mom worked in the cafeteria, and both of their jobs were privatized. They found out that under the BC Liberal government, now BC United, that their jobs were being privatized. They were laid off. And my dad, in the case of my mom, she wasn't offered an opportunity to go back under the privatized model, so she had to leave the healthcare sector. But for my dad, he went back and came back at a relatively smaller hourly wage. I think he lost about $6 to $8 an hour, which was significant because he very much was the breadwinner for our family. And that led to me spending a lot of time on protest lines and expressing quite a lot of frustration to the government. I don't know if I fully understood the impact at that time. I was about 10 years old on my family, but it was a big deal for our family and so many others, in particular people of color who worked in the healthcare sector and really a lot of precarious work, people who were working multiple jobs as housekeepers, as porters, and in the cafeteria. And it was a significant impact. But it wasn't until grade 5 that I was doing a project on the election that I really gained a strong interest in public policy. I was a keener in school, even in grade 5. And so I wanted the A. And I asked my teacher, what could I do to get extra credit? And she said, why don't you interview the person who wins in this riding? And that person happened to be John Horgan. And I invited John Horgan, who later became the premier of the province of British Columbia, to my classroom. Remember the day just like yesterday. I was much shorter back then. John was really tall. And he pulled into his car. And I remember seeing this big Irishman come out with a big smile on his face. And he's been a friend and a mentor to me ever since. And from there, I was a student activist in politics, and we could certainly talk about that. And all of those little pieces have led me to today sitting here in my community office as the MLA for Langford, Wandafika.
That's a lot of good stuff that we covered in there, and a lot of questions that I had in my mind. You covered a lot of that. So I figure, why don't we start off right there with your mentor, John Horgan, because you have taken up his seat now, which has been a stronghold of the Democratic Party for almost last 18 years. How big of a challenge it is to fill in those shoes, especially because he's also been a mentor to you, and what does that look like for you?
Oh, it's massive. It's daunting. It's something I think about every night when I go to sleep, and first thing I think about when I wake up in the morning. John is a special person. He's a very unique person. Well, a lot of people have got a chance to see him as premier of our province under pretty stressful times, whether it was a pandemic, floods, or fires. But I got a chance to see John Horgan and a group of us here in Langford, Wandafika, whether it's Langford, Souk, all the way up to Port Renfrew. We truly got a chance to see the other side of John, and that's John as the MLA, or John as a resident of Langford. And that's what led to people falling in love with the guy. He is just so brilliant. One thing that I heard loud and clear when I was knocking on doors for people was John was always here. He was present in the community. Out in Souk and politics, when you show up, people appreciate that. Whether they agree with you or not on political spectrums, they may be leaning conservative or they may be leaning green, but they appreciate when people show up. And when John became the MLA, he never missed a Canada Day event. He never missed the Souk Apple Fest or the different events that happen in Souk, like the Fall Fair. He was always there. He was always present. And often he was the last person to leave the room because he was a talker like me. And people appreciated that of him. And my biggest job is to continue the tradition of service that John Horgan provided to the community of Langford, Wandafika. And certainly that's daunting. But I know that John Horgan didn't just come up with that on his own. There's always been a tradition of service from New Democrat MLAs in this community. Many of your listeners will remember the name Mo Sahota, the first Sikh cabinet minister in all of Canada. He represented this community in the 90s and is also a mentor to me. And I think of the great Frank Mitchell, Rick Casper, all individuals that worked their butt off for their community, that were there at events and always showed up when their community was in need. And so I'm very lucky to have such strong mentors and role models to look up to. But I'm also very lucky to be standing on the shoulders of those incredible giants who have done so much for the community and have now put their emphasis and their legacies on me to continue providing that tradition of service that people would expect in Langford, Souk, all the way out to Port Renfrew.
So a quick A question on that piece of it. So you named just a few of your mentors, and those are some big names when we talk about politics. A good mentor also needs a good mentee. How do you make sure that you are a good mentee, or what are some initiatives that you have to take? What are some qualities of a good mentee for those listening out there?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think mentorship is such an important piece, whether it's in politics or whatever field you work in. It's so important that we're creating the pathway for future generations. And again, I'm a perfect example of someone who didn't have to, but took time out of his schedule, busy schedule, and the people around him to make space for me, especially as a young person of color growing up in a community that was predominantly Caucasian. I'll owe a debt of gratitude to John for the rest of my life because of that. But for me, it was really important. I was elected as the youngest school trustee in Canada on my 20th birthday back in 2014. And when I ran for what I wanted to do and why I ran to be a trustee was to bring a different perspective to tables. And I now have the opportunity to do that as the youngest MLA in the province. And when I was a trustee was to bring the perspective of a recent consumer of the public education system. No disrespect to my colleagues who were at the table, but many of them were retired. And it had been many years that they had actually sat in the classroom as students. And so for me to go back to your question, it's so important that you open the door to young people. You bring them in. I've already, it's been a couple of months since I've been in the MLA, but I have really valued the relationships that I've been able to build with young people in my community. I have an open door policy that they're able to come in anytime they want to chat with me. And I'm looking forward to building foundations like potentially a youth council or other ways to be able to engage directly with young people. I've been able to get engaged with the sports community here in Langford. I'm looking forward to engaging with members of the arts and culture community, as well as all those different multicultural communities that make up this incredible city and this incredible riding that I'm lucky to call home. The mentorship is so important. And for mentees, if I can pass on some advice is come curious. Sometimes one of the biggest criticisms I often found for myself was I felt I was very structured. You needed to get something out of it, or you came in and were a bit afraid to ask questions and you felt like this was more of an opportunity to just soak things up for yourself. But I'd like to think that John Horgan got a lot out of his relationship with me as my mentor, and come into these sort of relationships, be curious, ask lots of questions, and challenge your mentor too, because it's so important for you, especially in politics, to provide your perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what really politics is about, is to
Mhm.
put that perspective forward and take all of it and get the best result possible, right? Let's move on to your current role as the MLA. If I was to ask you, what are the top three challenges of your constituents today, and how do you plan to navigate them?
Yeah, I've got a unique challenge. I was elected in a by-election not too long ago, just a couple of months ago, and the next general election is a year from now. I'm always of the mindset that I want to get things done for my community. That's something that's been driven into me by my family, individuals who are workaholics and have this tenacity and this work ethic. I think that's just comes from being immigrants and also being the children of immigrants. So you just have to hustle and work so much harder than others. And so when I got elected, I had a list of 100 things, Ravi, that I wanted to be able to accomplish. But I've acknowledged that a year goes by very quickly. I'm talking to you, I think almost 2 months to the day, or 2 months in a couple of days to when I got elected. And so I need to be realistic. The issues that I heard on the doorstep were pretty clear for a growing community like mine, is making sure that we continue to have strong services like education and healthcare for a growing community, and access to all of those different pieces. So we know that we face some pretty significant challenges with our healthcare system right now, with the lack of doctors and nurses. Investing in education and post-secondary education is really important for me. It's something I worked very closely with John Horgan, was to bring the most number of new schools to our community and our school district's history, as well as a new university that's going to be opening up here next year. That's something John Horgan and I worked very closely together. So services is the first piece that I think I hear often from people. The next piece is transportation infrastructure, making sure that we keep people moving. In Langford, we like to complain about being stuck in traffic. It's just something that we all get used to doing. Though whenever we go to the Lower Mainland, we keep our mouth shut because it can be pretty challenging there as well. So I was in the Lower Mainland last week and stepped in traffic. I think going from Surrey to White Rock, kind of was like a 40-minute drive for 10
Tell me about it.
kilometers. Yeah, and so tend to not complain after experiencing that, but for our 30 minutes, we tend to complain here. But it's also important when you live in a community that's gone from 30,000 people to 50,000 people, really seems like overnight. It's so important we're investing in transportation infrastructure like buses and looking at LRT in the future as well. And also making sure that we're making investments in highway and active transportation infrastructure. So that was something I heard loud and clear. And the third piece that I want to touch on, was the economy and making sure that we're creating good paying jobs. That new university in Langford is a game changer for our community because it brings together 5 post-secondary institutions, the first of its kind in British Columbia and possibly Canada: the University of Victoria, Royal Roads University, Camosun College, and the Justice Institute of British Columbia, alongside the Soup School District, all locating their programs in one building and offering those to the entire West Shore and Soup community. It's so important for my community. We are relatively a strong blue collar community, a lot of people in the construction and trades, but it's so important. And you see these challenges in rural communities where the predominant economy is mining or forestry, or if you look at the top of the island, fishing. When there's boom and bust in the economy, it can have a significant impact. And I'm going to be really focused on supporting the small businesses in my community and also making sure that we're diversifying our economy. We've got a lot of home-based tech companies that are moving out to Langford and Soup from all over the world, and making sure that we can help attract more people into those sectors and more businesses into our community is going to be a big priority. Services, infrastructure, and a strong economy is going to be the focus for me the next year.
The future looks bright for Langford if we can check off on all those boxes. So my question to you is then, a lot of times when you're making policies, it's the people that the policies are being made for. So how do you make sure that those folks that you represent, that they are included in the decision-making process and their voices are heard? What is your go-to strategy to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. What a great question. A lot of people that get into politics, one of the challenges I think they face, and I experienced this as a staffer working for a number of politicians over the years, is they get stuck in rooms like the one I'm in. I'm in my office here in Langford talking to you, which I'm really appreciative of. But I should not be spending my entire day here. I should be out in my community. I should be out at the local coffee shop engaging with people where they're at. And something that's really important to me is getting out and door knocking. Door knocking can be a very scary thing when you think about it. So you're out there, you're putting yourself out there and you're knocking on doors, but I love it. There are a lot of people that you'll come to who are just not interested in having a conversation, may not be interested in chatting with me about politics, but what I talk to them about is community and what aligns us from a values perspective, and also what are some of the issues that stress them out the most. And so when I'm out in communities talking about the fact that maybe their kids can't get into their neighborhood schools because of the growing enrollment that the school district is facing, that's a real challenge. Or maybe that they don't have access to a family doctor, or the bus route in their community is not coming as regularly as it should be, or they may be struggling finding employment or getting into a post-secondary institution. Those are real issues that people in my community face. And if I'm stuck in an office like this all day, it's very difficult for me as a local representative to be able to really truly represent the perspectives of my community. It was really important for me, and I've taken this message from my mentors and done this as a school trustee and now as an MLA. Before one can act, a week from now, I'm going to be entering the BC legislature for the first time officially as the MLA for Langford Wanda Fuca. And it was really important for me to understand for myself that before I can act on behalf of the people of Langford Wanda Fuca, I truly need to be rooted in the community, and I truly need to listen and learn and engage with the community. And so I had a very busy summer. I sent off, I kid you not, Ravi, hundreds upon hundreds of letters to anyone who'd be interested in talking to me. I sent a letter to every single mayor and councillor individually in my community. I sent a letter to all of the not-for-profits that I can find, all of the community organizations, sports, arts and culture, and all of the community-based organizations that provide services in our community with the help of the provincial and federal government. And actually this week, my team and I are moving into businesses, and we're going to be sending a letter to every single business in Langford, Highlands. There's not many businesses in the Highlands, but Langford, the Highlands, Soup, East Soup, Shirley, Otter Point, Jordan River, all the way out to Port Renfrew. I expect it's going to be a lot of letters, but it's really important for me throughout my time as the MLA, but especially in these early days, to go out there and listen and learn from people, to hear about the challenges that businesses, people, and organizations and local governments are facing. I neglected in the beginning to also acknowledge that it was really important for me to be able to engage with the local nations, First Nations in my community. I have the honor of working with hand in hand and supporting the Shianu First Nations, Beecher Bay, the Sauk Nation, as well as the Pacheedaht Nation to the west, Mitchalnath. And I'm very thankful to be able to live, work, and play on their beautiful traditional territories. And so it's so important for me to be able to be doing that, listening and learning it. Again, it's not something that I'm just going to do at the beginning and then forget about, but something that I'm going to be constantly doing. And I often say to new relationships that I build that they're going to get sick and tired of seeing me. I represent urban Langford, so I spend a lot of time here because my family lives here in Langford. I live here in Langford, but I also represent the community of Port Renfrew, which has 400 people, and the Pacheedaht First Nations. And I was up in Pacheedaht. I think I've gone up there 3 times since officially becoming the MLA for the community. And the chief there said, "Holy smokes, we should just get you a house up here." And I said, "Chief, don't worry, the drive's not too far for me, but please know that you're going to get sick and tired of seeing me. I want you to know that I'm here for you, I'm present, and I'm ready to listen and learn."
So, with that, I'm sure there comes a lot of challenges when you're trying to approach so many people. How do you have you ever come across some criticism when you are trying to approach these folks, and how do you deal with criticism?
Yeah, oh, for sure. I think the challenge when we live in such a partisan system of democracy is both Orange and an NDP. And one thing that John taught me very clearly is that people don't see party colors. They don't necessarily see borders. They just want to know that their leaders are going to be standing up for them and working on the issues that matter for them. And so when I'm offering services in my community office, my team is, we don't just offer services to people who voted for us. We offer services to everyone because that's what our role is. And that's what our job is. And I want people in my community to know, whether you voted for me or not, that I'm going to be here for you, that I'm going to listen to your concerns. I may not always agree with your perspectives, but I'd like to think that values align us, the values of wanting to grow a prosperous community, a community where our children can thrive, where you can work hard and be successful in creating a positive life for your family, where seniors can age and care with the love and support of the community. Those are the things that bound us together. And Ravi, I think that's the challenging thing, whether it's politics down south in the United States, or unfortunately what we see with different political parties and leaders here in Canada. It can be so nasty, and that just doesn't attract people, especially young people like us, into politics, right? It makes it very intimidating. It's scary, and people often tell me, "Why get involved in politics? Why get involved in all of the yelling and all of the character assassinations?" Because we need good people in politics, and at the end of the day, people will decide whether I'm one of those good people or not, and that's my job, to be able to live up to that expectation that people in my community in the province of British Columbia has on me. But it's so important that we make sure that we're working together to accomplish those things. And I got a chance in my time working in government to see 2 individuals who did not like each other at the beginning grow into a strong friendship. And that was John Horgan. And I'm not sure if you remember Andrew Weaver, who was the leader of the BC Green Party. We, in 2017, when the NDP were successful, we were only successful because of the support in a minority government of the BC Green Party. Andrew Weaver and John Horgan, I think it was fair to say back then, did not like each other, did not often have conversations with each other, and they're really good friends today. And I've grown to quite like Andrew myself, and he was very kind enough to endorse me in my by-election campaign. Again, Andrew is a strong, passionate advocate for the environment and climate change, and I truly value his expertise as a climate scientist. And we've been able to take the values that we have of trying to grow a strong economy while fighting climate change, and working together, our government and his party were able to create one of the world leading climate action plans, Clean BC, that's still making a huge impact today. And in politics, often you think of people in different parties and not getting along and fighting. But I have great friends from the United Party and from the Conservative Party. I was at an event last week and got the biggest hug from a friend who happens to be on the executive of the BC Conservative Party. Do we get along on everything? Absolutely. But do I adore him and consider him a friend and a brother? Absolutely. I think more in politics, when we can bring people together, have honest and frank discussions and debate, it better for all of us. And I give full credit to Model Parliament, University's Model Parliament, where I got a chance to build relationships and have vigorous debates with liberals and conservatives to make me into the person I am today.
I love that outlook for many reasons, right? Because from the outside, we look at, as you identified, the orange party, the blue party, the red party, and we forget that at the end of the day, they're all working towards a collective goal, and that is the improvement and the betterment of the people living in the nation. So I love that outlook on it. My question to you on that is, and this is just thinking out loud, so Canada is a big nation, and a lot of times that Canada is divided into these different colors. So what I mean by that is BC might be orange, Alberta might be blue, Saskatchewan blue, and then you go east, it might turn red. My question to you is specifically related to BC. BC has been a Democratic Party time and again. Why are they inclined towards that side or that color? Why do you think the Democratic Party has such a stronghold in BC?
What I would say is we weren't always blue. We weren't always orange here. Rather, we were blue before, and we were red. We had prior to we've been in power for since 2017, so about 6 years. Prior to that, we had the BC Liberal Party, which was what they considered a free enterprise of conservatives and liberals. Before that, we had the NDP, and before that, we had the Social Credit Party for a number of years. And so there's definitely been different parties that have had strong footholds in power here in British Columbia. But I think why we've been successful under the leadership of John Horgan and now my friend David Eby, who is our premier of our province, is we're focused every day on making life better for people. And we're also so importantly figuring out, and this is a challenge every day. It's like balancing a lever is finding the balance on so many issues. If you go into politics focused on pleasing everyone, I'll give any of those people who are thinking about going into politics, if you're focused entirely on pleasing everyone, know that you will not be able to accomplish that. And if you are able to accomplish that, you should write a book about it, because I think a lot of people would buy that book. But it's so important that you're striking that balance. I know that there are a lot of people in my community that may not agree with my party on a different perspective, but I hope that there are other perspectives that they can agree on, other policies and value fronts. And so in politics, what I think John Horgan and David Eby are showing, now David Eby is our premier, is that you can grow a strong economy and fight climate change at the same time, that you can make investments in your social services while also balancing the budget and making investments in our future and paying off the debt. And so I think as long as we keep doing that and making sure that our focus remains on people as our number one priority, we'll continue to be successful. And again, I've always been of the mindset that as soon as you lose track of that, you lose track of who you are as a movement and as a party and as a government and who you're focused on, that's when you tend to get kicked to the curb. And so as long as we're focused on people, I think we'll continue doing all right. And as long as we stay rooted in our communities and bring the perspectives of our communities and tackle the challenges that our communities expect of us, we'll continue to do, and hopefully continue to get the opportunity to represent the people of British Columbia in government.
That's awesome. So my question to you is then, out of your career, you have had such a career with 10 years, you worked as the school chair, and now you're working as an MLA. What would you categorize as the most proud moment of your career so far? And what did that teach you?
Yeah, wow. Okay, that's a great question. I think one of the things that I'm most proud of my time, relatively new MLA, so I'm not going to use any examples in the last couple of months, but one of the proudest moments that I've had, it's over two events, is my relationship with the Indigenous nations in our community. Chief Russ Chips, who I consider a friend and a big brother to me, is someone I look up to each and every day. He is, again, another mentor to me. When I first met Chief Russ Chips of the Shianu First Nations, Beecher Bay, the Salmon people, he taught me that before you can build a relationship, you need to build trust with one another. And the trust between his people and the school district over so many years was broken. It was broken over residential schools. It was broken over the fact that we were not respecting of their cultures, traditions, and customs. It got to a point where we thought we were, I think it was before my time, but I think people thought that we were respecting their cultures and traditions, that we created First Nations rooms and we would put the students of Indigenous ancestry in these rooms and give them Bannock and teach them about their cultures and customs. Chief Chips was completely opposed to this. He said that your job is to educate our children, and it's your job to embed our cultures, customs, and traditions into the school, not into a singular room that only our children get an opportunity to benefit from. And also in that case, where it's a little bit provided from a colonial perspective. But we've been able to build a lot of relationships as a school district with our Indigenous partners and with our Indigenous rights holders. And it's been really important to me. And it's gotten to a point where we've built such strong, trusting relationships that when we are building new schools, we've been able to gift three of the names, or rather the nations have been able to give three names to the school district. And so having the opportunity as board chair to announce that Paksisan, which is an elementary school in Langford, which refers to the opening of hands as a name of our schools gifted by the Songhees First Nations, is really special to me. Center Mountain Leyland, which was gifted by Chief Russ Chips, which refers to Center Mountain, an important development that brought the communities of Shianu, Beecher Bay, Machosen, and Langford to the table as part of treaty settlement. And Leyland, which refers to a place where community gathers and where families gather, was a really special moment for me as board chair to be able to announce that. And just these past few weeks ago, as the MLA and previously as board chair, I had the opportunity to participate and help announce a new school in our community in South Langford, which was also gifted by a name gifted by the Shianu First Nations and an elder in the community. And it's a name called Shianu Seletki, which means salmon children. The relationships with our Indigenous communities is something I truly value. It's something I work on each and every day in my role as an MLA. And those moments where I've been able to build those relationships on behalf of the communities that I've represented and the organizations that I've represented, whether it was with the Sioux School District or now with the provincial government, are things that I truly value. And if I had to pick those on top of others, it would be an easy choice for me to be able to choose being able to go out there with Chief Chips and elders from the Songhees First Nation and announce the names of those schools. It was a really special moment for me and a really special moment for our school district community.
I absolutely love that story. And part of that, why I love that so much, is I came to Canada as an international student, and I found that a lot of times there wasn't the incorporation or the education about the First Nations people. So you spend all this time trying to learn the new ways of the country without actually learning about the people of the country. So yeah, kudos to you for that work. Let's switch gears and talk about diversity and inclusion. It's the topic that I love, and I know you love this topic too. The reason I bring it up is because of what took place last week. There were some protests that were done for the gender education and related to that. Where do you stand on that topic, and what are your general thoughts as it relates to diversity and inclusion?
I think that it is our role as leaders in government, and certainly when I was the chair of the school district, to create inclusive environments, inclusive learning environments, and also inclusive communities where anyone, no matter their sexual orientation, gender identity, race, or cultural beliefs, can succeed and know that they're safe. Safety is one of those things that I think we often overlook. As a straight man, I don't let the challenges that my brothers and sisters and comrades face from the LGBTQ plus community. And so it was really important for me in my roles as a school trustee and also now as an MLA to stand up for those individuals and stand up for their rights and their obligations to be safe in their community. That's something that I think is an important responsibility that we all have. And so last week, you had an example where you had the communities come and spread hate and make comments that would lead to these communities and these, in particular, learning environments in our schools not be a safe place for those students. And I find that reprehensible. And I was proud to stand with my colleagues in support of those communities, in support of those people that live in our communities who may not feel safe going into schools, who may not feel safe going into their communities and engaging in a meaningful way as citizens. It's so important at the end of the day that we create safe and welcoming places. I had an opportunity to do that as a school board trustee. I made the bold statement after we had an incident in our community that I wanted to eliminate systemic racism from our school system in ST62. And it wasn't just something that I wanted to say that was a catchy title in a newspaper article. It was something that I wanted to focus on and deliver on. And so I'm really proud that the school district that I've now left is working very hard on a number of different projects. One, for example, is that as I talked about early on at the beginning of this podcast, the city of Langford and the entire Sioux School District, from Sioux all the way up to Port Renfrew and Chosen are included in that broader school district, are diversifying. And there are people from all over the world but our staff complement, whether it's our executive team in the school board office, right down to our teachers and our custodians and our clerical workers and bus drivers, don't represent the community. And so that's something that I want us as a school district to work on, and we've begun working on, is making sure that at the end of the day, we will come to a time when the diversity of the students is represented in the diversity of the staff that we have in the school district. Creating safe and welcoming places is so important, and you can do that by ensuring that there are ways in which we can support those diverse communities. I often think about the challenges that our Muslim students go through during Ramadan, and making sure that our educators are trained and have the cultural appropriateness to be able to support those students when they're fasting. I think of challenges that our Ukrainian students are going through, adjusting to a new learning environment and adjusting to a new life after they left their war-torn country. And so it's so important that we are, as a school district and certainly as a society and as a government, supporting all communities to be able to diversify and really to be able to help succeed. And what's so disappointing is you have, in many cases, these groups that spread hate. I saw just yesterday, and it just made me sick to think, why would anyone want to put up a poster saying that they're putting together a little group of kids to be able to come together, and it's only white kids that are allowed to go to this group? What world do we live in? It's 2023. And we're almost at 2024, and we're still having these debates and discussions. Those are not debates and discussions. That's hate. That's racism, and it's not acceptable in Canada, British Columbia, or this community.
I love your thoughts on that. So my question to you, and because you're a person of color yourself, have you ever experienced that hate or that discrimination in your life? Is there an instance that you can share, and how did you overcome that?
Yeah, I think all of us, people of color, have faced different challenges. I think this is a really tough topic for me. I don't like talking about racism. I tend to just push it away. And when we moved from Victoria to Langford, we were moving away from our families. We lived in a townhouse complex where my cousins were just around the corner, and there's lots of people of color in that complex, and lots of people from the South Asian community. It was a really safe place. And when I moved to my school, it was the only Punjabi boy or relatively only person of color in my school. That safe feeling wasn't necessarily there. And I certainly faced different examples of racism. When we moved, my mom was pregnant with my little brother at the time, and I was blessed every single day during the time when my mom was on mat leave to get roti and dal or sabji or whatever she was making that day, freshly prepared and delivered to my school every day. I was blessed. But at the same time, I would love that today if my mom would do that for me, but she's busy working, and now that's my job to do that for myself as an adult. But back then, I was ashamed because people would make fun of the food. They would say that it smells like curry and make derogatory name calling like curry boy. And what I did was I didn't acknowledge it. I just tried to do my best to blend in. And I think for a lot of people, that's what racism does to you, is you just blend in. I wear a kara. I'm not a baptized Sikh, but I wear a kara since I was a little boy. And there were so many times where I would be at events and stuff, and I would try to hide it underneath my shirt or take it off and put it in my pocket because I felt uncomfortable what people would think of me, or if they would be whispering or saying, why is he wearing that? And so I think the challenge that I've overcome for most of my life is trying to blend in. When I became a school trustee, I was a rebel rouser. I came in with a lot of ambition and a lot of things that I wanted to accomplish. And what I heard from my colleagues, I remember my first couple of meetings, my motions wouldn't get seconded at Robert's rules. In order for you to be able to deliver on something, you need to move a motion, and it needs to be seconded before it can be debated and ultimately voted on. And I would bring things forward and they wouldn't be seconded. So they would just die on the floor. And I heard that people were not appreciative of my perspective, and I was referred to as a young East Indian bastard. And people would say that I don't support women because my culture doesn't support women. Things that are just ridiculous and furthest from the truth. And so I guess going back to your point, there's countless things that I can point to as examples of racism that I've faced. I'm still lucky. I think of my parents when they immigrated here in the 90s, what they had to go through in adjusting to life from India to Canada. And I think of so many other immigrant students that are now making Canada their home and what they have to go through too. But I regret just trying to blend in. I wish I embraced my culture and my customs and traditions more. as a young student and as a young person growing up. That's something I regret that I'll always have in my life, but it's now an opportunity for me to be able to help celebrate those and learn from the elders in my community, like my grandmother, who teaches me about what life was like for her in India and the fun and the sacrifices that she had to go through to ultimately come here to Canada.
Yeah, I can't even imagine, what that must feel like when you're trying to do the best thing for everybody else, and then this is how others treat you. So kudos to you, because you've definitely
Yeah,
overcome that,
thank
and
you.
you're still on the right path. My next question to you is: a lot of times there's a lot of setbacks in one's life. What matters is how do you overcome those setbacks? Is there a certain setback that you had to face in your life, or a failure that has then set you up for success? A favorite failure of yours, if one comes to mind.
It's a great question, and I'll ponder on that as I talk about it. I think in many situations, there's great basketball and hockey analogies about if you don't take that shot or if you don't take that hoop, you'll not be successful. In my life, at time, I've been truly blessed to have been supported by the community that looks up to me. And so it's hard for me to pick one failure that really just looks at me as the one example. And so what what I'd say to that is there's countless things that I've failed at and countless things that I've been successful at. But the thing about failure is, and the message that I've always tried to pass on in my work as a trustee and now as an MLA, is when one fails, they should always get back up. And people often think when I say that, easy to say, much harder to do, especially depending on the challenge you faced that led to, and I hate using the word failure, but the challenge that led to you not being successful in what you were trying to accomplish. And so the message that I always want to put out there is if you are unsuccessful, and you have fallen down, know that your community will always be there to help pick you back up. That's a common message that I pass on to the graduates of the high schools that they graduate from our K-12 system in Belmont Secondary School and Royal Bay and Edward Milne Community School. And when I give our annual graduation speeches, is know that you will fail, you will fall down, but know that your community will always be there to help you get back up, because that's our job as community leaders. You are our future, and it's so important that you know that you need to take those risks, and we will be there to support you in taking those risks, as long as it's done so in a respectful way that respects the people around you. And so, yeah, that's going to be the question of the day. Ravi, I think you might have stopped me there, but something I'll think about. But I think we always face challenges each and every day of our lives, and we may consider them failures, but I always like to think of them as learning opportunities and an opportunity to get back on my feet and continue the work that I'm doing.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you on that. And I love the community aspect, because there's that saying, it takes a community to raise a child. I feel like it takes a community to even keep you as a sane adult and for all your life, ever after, right? You need that human connection. So
Yes.
thanks for sharing that. Let's move on to your personal life. It's a job full of pressures and stress. What do you do in your personal life to take your mind off of the stress or stay mentally fit? What are some practices you have in place?
Yeah, great question. And this might be a learning opportunity. So I hope you continue asking this question to others too, because I'm always interested in picking up thoughts and perspectives. I'll be frank, I'm a workaholic. And so I've always been, I'm a hustler in terms of trying to get things done. And I've done so as a school trustee. When I was elected as a school trustee, I was also still a student at University of Victoria studying full time. And for me, going back to 2012, when I first went into university and was also working at the same time, it's been go ever since. And me finding quiet time and quiet space, it's mostly sleep, to be honest with you. I tend to go, and then the only time I ever sleep in is Sunday mornings. I'm usually up pretty early. I'm at 5 o'clock. I don't know, I'm programmed to wake up at 5 o'clock every day, though I'm not ready to have a conversation at 5 o'clock. I'm pretty groggy then, but I'll maybe wake up at 7 or 8 o'clock on Sunday, which sounds horrible, but that helps me get an extra hour or two of sleep. And I feel like a fresh new person every day. And it's really important for me, as I go into this role, to find ways to be able to help balance my home life and balance the things around me and the friendships that I have with people outside of politics. I'm a swimmer, and I see that as a bit of a stress relief. I haven't been able to do as much of that over the summer as I would have liked to. And so I'm trying to find a way to fit that back into my routine. With the challenge I'm going into the legislative session is you're there first thing in the morning, and then you're leaving at 9, 10 o'clock, and not a lot of pools are open then. So I'm trying to find a way maybe to sneak into a rec center that might be open a little bit later. We have one that's nearby the legislature. It's a bit of a drive in the opposite direction that I'm heading in, but thinking about doing that a couple of days a week. Getting back into basketball is really important for me. I love the hot weather. I do not like the rain and the cold, and the rain and the cold just makes you want to be inside all day, which isn't great. So finding ways to stay active is important, but also finding ways to be able to enjoy the nature and the sunlight is really important to me. Again, in my past jobs as a government staffer supporting ministers, it was so difficult when you were just stuck at a desk and you weren't getting out and about. I remember when I first joined government, the only real exercise and light that I was getting was walking from my car in the mornings to and from home to the car, and then when I'm parked in the parking lot, from the car to the building, and vice versa at the end of the day. And that's not healthy. That's not going to lead to a successful work-life balance. And finding that is really important. And I know that there's so many other people that are challenged with that. And also, I also acknowledge that I'm in a very privileged position where I am able to find that, but there's so many people who are dealing with the cost of living issues that are impacted by it. And as I'm complaining about finding time to swim in the evenings, there's tons of people who are finishing their day job and going into their night jobs. And so I don't want those individuals who may be listening to think that I'm not acknowledging the concerns that they have and the challenges that they have to do just to put a roof over their head and food in their stomachs. And I'm always mindful of that, the challenges and stresses that people go through. And I think that's why I'm so driven at what I do and why I'm so focused each and every day on delivering for people.
Yeah, I think that's why this question becomes even more relevant, because it gets to paint the picture for everybody from outside looking in, be like how busy your day gets. And then it tells others too, right? Like sometimes it could be as simple as just taking a walk and just de-stress and really taking the time for yourself. So thanks for that. My next question to you is along the lines of favorite books. Is there a favorite book that you have, the book that you recommend the most? What would that be?
Yeah, I don't know if you can see, I have a bookshelf behind me with a lot of books. Through university, I didn't really get a chance to read many books, but if I could pick one right now, I know this is probably not the best thing to do, but one, just to give him a shout out because he's actually in an election right now, is Wab Canoe. I just finished reading bits of his book again. I read it for the first time probably 4 or 5 years ago when I first had the opportunity to meet Wab. He's the leader of the NDP in Manitoba, and I certainly hope next week he's going to be the first Indigenous premier in our province, in our country's history. Someone who went through significant challenges in his personal life and has been able to overcome them, and is now the leader of a provincial party. And again, I hope a week from, I think a week from tomorrow, hopefully I'll be watching the election results and he'll be the premier of our province. I got a chance to meet Wab when I was in Manitoba during the 2019 provincial election, working on the campaign. And he's someone that is truly remarkable. And it's not my favorite books, no offense, Wab, but one that I just happened to be looking at the other day as I'm thinking about what he must be going through in politics. But whenever I get a chance to find time to read, I'm still very much the type of person that likes print and paper in my hand. And I'm always struggling to move and be a little bit more hip and read off my phone and my iPads, mostly because of screen time. But I've got tons of books back there that I'm always looking at. Again, as would be expected from a politician, I do reading political autobiographies. I was trying to convince a staff person in my office to read Bill Clinton's autobiography because it provided a different perspective on Bill than I think most people have. But yeah, I've got tons of books there. Not enough hours in the day to read them, but usually if I ever do get vacation time or away from my phone for a set period of time, for example, the last time I had vacation was when I went to India just before the pandemic. And I like going when it's hot. I don't mind the 40, 45 degree weather, to be honest with you. It makes the nights a little bit challenging. But the last time I went was in January of 2020. So just before the pandemic. And I think I finished off about 10 books because it was so cold and no one wanted to do anything. And so I just sat inside the entire time reading. So yeah, hopefully I'll get a chance to do more reading. Maybe that's something that'll be a bit of a stress reliever for me.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I'm a big reader and I love the print. So I'll get the Bill Clinton book and I'll get the book for Bob. So thanks for sharing that.
Fantastic.
Awesome. We're coming to the end. So just a couple of quick questions for you. If you could put something on the billboard for your constituency, everybody to read a message, what would that be?
You are just killing it with the questions today. I think what I would put is a place where community gathers. It's really important for me here at this community office to know that people from all different lives and perspectives can come here and gather as one community to share their perspectives. And we held our open house a couple of weeks ago, and it was great to see, and it was acknowledged by leaders of the past and present that there was people from different walks of life and different communities coming together to be able to help open this office. And so a place where community gathers is always something that comes to mind to me.
I love that. It's been a blast today to talk with you, to pick up your brain, just to see how you work. It's been a pleasure just learning from you. Before I let you go today, what would be your final message to anybody who is listening?
Thank you so much for the opportunity to come on your show. I truly believe that it's an honor that you asked me to be able to be on here. And I hope that we can continue our friendship. And I'm looking forward to viewing future podcasts of yours in the future. That's something that I'm actually spending a lot more time, funny enough, is listening to podcasts when I'm out on walks or in the car on long drives and stuff. And so looking forward to being an avid listener and watcher of yours in the days, weeks, and months and years ahead. But my message to anyone who's listening is if you have an interest in politics, we need more good people in politics. It doesn't matter what party you join. It doesn't matter the things that bring you into politics. But I think we all share different values and perspectives, and hopefully they can lead to us having a strong, vigorous debate, but a debate that is respectful and at the end of the day is focused on the people that we serve. Thanks so much again for having me on your show.
Thanks for your time as well. Good luck to you in the future.